Cup energy with 6 days out for kickoff for the 2023 Women's World Cup in Australia and New Zealand. And we love a theme here at Attacking Third. We love to celebrate. We're all about it. So with 6 days till the World Cup kicking off on July 20th, we decided why not pick out 6 teams that we think will make a run at the title. Now, Lisa, I've mentioned this before on the show that I'm of the argument that any of the current top 10 ranked teams going into this competition can make a case, can probably have a good shot at making a run for the 2023 World Cup title. I would say some are in front of others, although we don't have a role in those official rankings. We can have fun with rankings of our own. So I've gone and done that. If you're looking for a remix or of a power rankings, I have that on cbssports.com. I've bumped up Brazil a little bit. I think I've bumped down Netherlands a little bit. I'll just be real. So take a look at it when you get a chance. But in terms of even narrowing that lens even more, it gets a little bit more tricky, I think, when you try to even narrow that down. So 6 teams that we think have a real shot at this title in 2023. Let's pop them off. Of course, we're going to pay respects to the current World Cup title holders. USA had the target on their back going into this tournament, and rightfully so. Totally. Like so many other programs, they've dealt with some hits along the way leading up to this tournament. They've got their injuries, but they've also got depth that they brought along. We've talked about the roster that got announced. It's pretty split between players who have played in previous World Cups and new faces who are going to make their debuts. But because of that, they're kind of looking at that as their X factor a little bit, that they've got a lot of exciting players to introduce to the world, and they're going to do it in this tournament, and we've got them right now at number 1.
Yeah, we do. How can you not have the United States at number 1? I think that across the board, a lot of different countries do. There have been times, I'm not going to lie, where I personally have faltered and said, can the USA actually win this, right? There are so many, the odds are against them. There are so many things going against the United States and the Americans. However, they've also got a lot of things going their way. They've got a lot of depth despite the injuries that this team has faced. They've got a lot of next man up mentality. They've got young players coming in that can make a difference. It's frankly a good mix to me of veterans and experience, with 14 players headed to their first World Cup, 9 major veterans, 3 of them that this will be their 4th World Cup. There's just a lot of different factors for this United States sides. They're setting themselves up for success. Now, it is not a cakewalk, and I think that with the media and what we've heard coming out of the U.S. women's national team camp, they don't think it's going to be, and they never would expect that. They're truly focused on Vietnam, the opening match for them, and kind of how they can run at this. They're number 1 in the FIFA rankings. They're number 1 in the odds. There's a lot of odds for them to win as well. If you're a betting person, you know all about that. But USA, that's our number 1 for sure.
Yeah, I think we wanted to try to have some fun with this and mix it up. So for number 2, we've been chatting about this team a lot, so maybe this won't be a shock for folks when they hear this, but we're high on Brazil. We want to see this team compete and go far in this tournament. We think they have some unique storylines around them. They have, of course, a significant number of players that we've been able to keep an eye on in the NWSL throughout the regular season to date. And they have a lot of motivation, I think, going into this World Cup. I think more so than maybe some of the other teams. It's not for me, when you're looking at whether it's top 10 or for us narrowing it down to 6, the whole concept of who wants it more is not something that I think is going to exist, because I think so many of these teams that we're talking about absolutely want it. They want to have that World Cup title. But I think when you start getting into the teams and what those reasons are, what those motivations can be, you get into Brazil and you have all of those unique opportunities. We have heard players talk about how inspired they are to try to go out there and get this long elusive World Cup title for Marta, who has officially announced that, yes, this will be her final World Cup. Players and teammates who have made that comparison to Argentina and Messi's run at the 2022 World Cup, and that they are motivated by this as well. So I am absolutely keeping an eye on Brazil. I've been saying it all over the place, Lisa.
Yep.
I've
Same.
it to
Same.
you on here, out here in Miami at a work conference. Look, if Brazil goes into this World Cup and they win their group and they beat France in this group, you better
Massive.
watch out for this team.
I agree. I'm with you. I think Brazil is top for me. They're one of the teams that people might sleep on. I think opposition might sleep on them as well. They have been so close, right? They were runners up in 99. They got third in 2007, but they've struggled. In their last 3 tournaments, they haven't cracked the top 4. Now when you look at the group that they're in with Panama, France, and Jamaica, I think this is a chance for them. They're coming off of a Copa America run where they went undefeated throughout that, and then they went on to win the whole thing. They've got a lot of versatility. They've got Pia Sundhage as the helm, who is a coach that also wants to win, right? It's been a bit elusive for her as well. You talked about Marta and how the World Cup has been just out of her grasp. Same for Pia. This is a coach that has spent a lot of times with very successful teams. She was with the United States. She has been in Sweden, and now she's with this Brazil side. And she's searching for a World Cup. And what really impresses me about this Brazilian side is that they've got a lot of players, right? I mean, you talked about Marta, and there's just a lot of different talent there. But what makes it hard, or rather fun, to scout them and to prepare for this Brazilian side is that the versatility of the players. Ari Borges, a player for Brazil, coming out and saying that she's going to play any position she wants, whether it's in the midfield or in the back, wherever her team needs her. The versatility is fantastic. The players play in multiple positions. They'll change during the game. One group stage match, they'll be an outside winger. The next one, they'll be a defender. It is impressive to watch. And the fact that this team is in that mentality of just, I will do whatever it takes for my team, for Marta, to get this win, makes Brazil a very, very much a top contender for this World Cup.
Yeah, I'm with you. Lots of great unique things there, and lots of motivation for sure. I mentioned, how Brazil taking on France could be one of those indicators, and that's a motivation as well for this team. They got eliminated by France in the 2019 World Cup. There's an opportunity to get some revenge pretty early on and rather quickly in this edition of the World Cup. So we're absolutely keeping an eye on this team. But we're also keeping an eye on other top 10 ranked teams. We have at number 3, England as a team to make a run for the title in this World Cup. Respectfully, they absolutely have a bit of a target on them as well, entering this tournament as the Euro champions. And when there's a lot of great energy around teams when they accomplish incredible things on the pitch. And what we witnessed last summer for England during the Euros, you just sort of felt like it was a monumentous occasion for women's football in Europe, England specifically. You saw the reaction, you saw the crowd, you saw everyone buy in. But like so many of their other top ranked rivals, they've also had to deal with some injury bumps along the way heading into this tournament. And they've had to deal with some questionable results in the buildup to this, just playing out to a scoreless draw against Portugal, a debutante team that will feature at the World Cup. And they struggled against Australia as well. So scoreless for the Lionesses going into this World Cup. And I still think that is going to be one of those motivating factors, though. They want to are going to get into this group stage and want to show that they still are those absolute contenders.
Yeah, and you're talking about recent form. They just tied with Canada 0-0. That just happened yesterday.
Another one.
Yeah, another one where this is also a nation that struggled with a lot of injuries. You look at the list and it keeps growing. Beth Mead, Fran Kirby, Leah Williamson. There's just a number of players that have been out, and Serena Wigman having to kind of alter and shift and come up with new game plans, because you're exactly right. After the Euros, it was kind of like, wow, this English side, they're just going to go on a run. And unfortunately, they've had to be knocked down a few pegs just in terms of the outside looking in and what was kind of happening to them. But they're still a top contender. I think the confidence levels for them, right? They went out against the Americans last year, and it was a tough run for the United States. So they've got confidence in this European side in England and what they can do heading into this match. For sure, they're number 4 on FIFA's rankings. They've dominated Europe, and they're going to continue to do that on this run. It's definitely not going to be easy for England when they head into this match against Group D. They're with Haiti, Denmark, China, and England. It'll be interesting and difficult to see, but they're top contenders.
Speaking of number 4, well, as you mentioned, we've actually got Spain as number 4 on our top 6 teams to compete for the title this year. Look, there were some odds that recently got placed out, some betting odds if folks want to try to place some bets on the World Cup. And Spain ranked among one of the higher teams in terms of odds. And look, we mentioned and touched on that Vietnam and Spain friendly a little bit at the top of the episode. And even though it might be a little bit of difference in competition for them within their own group stage, you have to know that that is going to be a confidence booster for this Spain side. The breaking through on goal aspect has sometimes been a topic of discourse for Spain as they've gone up in major tournaments. Shoot the ball. Can they get and rack up kind of lopsided score lines in major tournaments? Or are they so focused on their, ball possession that maybe they're going to keep it closer than it is for comfort? I think no matter how you get the points, it doesn't make them any less of a contender. I think if anything, their style and their ball retention is something that makes them such a team to sort of be a little bit, have a little bit of fear when you go up against them. And I think they're going to be a team that for some others still remain a little bit unpredictable. So I'm very curious how the group stage is going to shake out. I like that we touched on that Japan and Spain game as a match to watch, because I do feel like there will be some competition within this group that will help Spain for those knockout rounds, because there are some other groups where there are some favorites that stand out. Germany and Sweden might have some untested waters going into the knockout rounds, but we can also be completely wrong on that as well. They can bomb out, though anything can happen at the World Cup. But for Spain, we feel like their potential path into the knockout rounds will only prepare them for the knockout rounds. So we've got them at number 4.
I really do. With the group, Spain, Japan, Costa Rica, Zambia, I think that Spain will finish first in this group heading out of it, which you're exactly right, is going to propel them forward throughout the round of 16 towards the final 4, heading into the semifinal. I think that this is a Spanish side that they've got Alexia Putellas back, and that's massive. Not just to have her on the pitch, but as a team, right? To know that she's there, she's an option, she's a secret weapon that they can use. Your confidence as a team just grows that much more. And there was a big stretch where it was like, is she going to be back? What's going to happen? How is she going to play? So the team had leveled up in those moments. They faced a lot of adversity off the pitch. We talked about France and some of the other options. And you look at, there's a number of nations that have been fighting for rights off the field. Spain is one of those teams. And when a team does that, and over 12, 13, 14, 15 players stand together and say, we will not support this, we will not be part of this, if this is how you want, that's a unity and that's a cohesiveness that once it's molded on the foundational level, that cannot be broken. And those teammates are stronger and better for it than they were before, because they stood by each other. And that's that extra little asterisk that this Spain side has, which puts them at the top of our list for sure to win.
Absolutely. For number 5, we're going to continue to show love to the co-hosts as often as we can. And we've got Australia at number 5. I was a little unsure if they would even rank within the 6 teams that we've got going on, because we're talking about how much competition there is between the top 10. So when you try to narrow that down even more, who is going to slot into that? And I have to say, there is a little bit of recency bias in this. If you're joining us today, they just had a match against France where they won 1-0 leading up into this World Cup. And Lisa, it was absolute scenes. We're talking 50,000 people in the stands showing up for just a friendly leading into the World Cup. It was absolutely, absolutely beautiful scenes. You love to see it. And for me, placing Australia number 5 out of 6 teams, narrowing it down from 10 teams might not be as unrealistic for some. I mean, there's history behind this in that sometimes when a national team is hosting a World Cup, they are motivated by being hosts and tend to do a bit well in those tournaments. And after watching Australia compete against another top 10 team and pull off that narrow result, you have to imagine that they've got a bit of clout going into this
For
World.
sure. And Mary Fowler getting the goal for Australia against this France side, she came on at the 45-minute mark, so at halftime. That's also really good to see, right? I mean, yeah, it's fun to see Sam Kerr score. She's the superstar. She's broken records in multiple leagues. She knows how to score. She knows how to do a backflip celebration. But you want to see the depth and the balance scoring with this Australian side because Sam Kerr is at the top of every single team's scouting report. So you can't rely on her to just carry this team offensively. You've got to balance out the scoring. And that's what they've been able to do. I mean, Kerr has gotten goals, but she's also been able to kind of set up her teammates and draw a lot of attention away, which allows for other teammates to be able to shine and grow into those moments. I think the defensive side of the game for Australia for me is a bit questionable. I get nervous with how many goals they might concede because they're focused on their offense and they can get exposed. But they've been doing pretty well. They're coming off back-to-back shutouts, 4 shutouts or 3 shutouts in their last 4 friendlies that they've played heading into the World Cup. So looking better for them, but we'll see.
No, I'm with you. I love that you touched on Fowler for sure, because I think that was one of the things that stuck out for me in that friendly. They kind of flexed their depth a little bit in this one. We saw Alana Kennedy slot in for Claire Polkinghorn at center back. What was that going to look like, as she is a player that has not played in quite some time, I believe since January, with this team, and how was she going to fare against such an attacking-minded France squad? We got to see Fowler come in off the bench and what she can produce as well. And I don't know if Australia is a team that many folks had on their radar as saying, like, who's got a really deep squad? Australia. But this kind of shows a little bit of how they can rotate players in and out. Sam Kerr getting rotated out of the game pretty early, because there's still that concept that, look, this is just a warm-up, right, against the upcoming World Cup. We want to have a great performance and we want to live up to the building or the billing and the hype, but let's make sure that we all get out of here, and make sure that we keep our eye on the prize. So thrilled for the Matildas to have such a great kind of send-off, so to speak, even though they're in their host country, but also a great feeling for them to sort of maybe get some of those jitters out initially, because it's going to feel a lot. You're going to feel a lot of emotions as a player representing the host country. And this was, I think, a nice way to sort of ease them in to some of the environments that they are going to see. You want to lift that pressure off of yourself a little bit in terms of those hopes of a nation on shoulders, right? And I think this match might have done that for them, and it's all part of why we're bumping them up in the teams to possibly take the title. And for number 6, we've got a little bit of a wild card because we're a little bit split now on this. Where I'm going to go France, and I think Lisa's going Germany, but or maybe we're flip-flopping, who knows? But we struggled to think about who is going to sit in this number 6 slot. Again, recency bias in place. France coming off that loss. We're going to touch on the injuries out of that game as well. So we've talked about how they've had a short build up to this World Cup in terms of their coaching. Herrera Renard just getting with the time with this team about 6 months, trying to put some band-aids right on some of the discourse and displeasure with France football culture and its players. Wendy Renard back in the pitch, wearing the captain's armband, but they've dealt with some injuries as well. No Amandine Henry available for this squad as they continue to move forward in the World Cup. But Germany also has some similar storylines as well when you're kind of comparing these two European giants.
Yeah, I mean, really with France, I think the injuries plague them a bit more than Germany, right? Like with winger Cascarino, she's out, right? ACL, Amandine Henry, as you just mentioned. And then most recently, as France just played in this friendly with Australia, Selma Bacha having to be taken off the pitch as well. Like that is heartbreaking. It's
Yeah.
devastating for me. It makes me so sad and so upset. I think this France side is going to do well though throughout this World Cup with the groups that they're playing with Jamaica, Brazil, and Panama. They'll get a good run. Now, Germany, though, they're in Group H with Morocco, Colombia, and South Korea. So they're going up against Morocco, debutantes in this. Um, for me, Germany can make a run in this World Cup if they just crush their Group H.
Yeah,
They're going to
and they will. Like
they will, and I mean they should.
they should.
They
Right.
should, Sandra. They should get shutouts every single game. They should rack up the score. They've got to get confidence. They've got to really feel themselves, get in a rhythm. Get really confident and comfortable in what they're doing. Caroline Simon with Bayern Munich for this German side, the defender, she is unavailable now without her knee. Linda Dahlman, her ankle is out, of course, and Julia Gwynn as well. So there's a number of players. I think Gwynn for me is probably the one that hurts the most. She was the 2019 best young player of the World Cup for Germany, and that's one that this German side is really going to miss. But if they can crack out as group stage, and I don't mean crack out like sneak out, I mean like snap a whip, dominate every single match they play, and go on a run, that's what'll help Germany.
All right, we'll see. I mean, look, the top 10 teams are so narrow. The margins are so fine and thin between them. It's fun. It's always fun trying to remix this and maybe narrow that down to 6 teams who we think are going to make a run at the title.